Have you ever found something left behind by the previous tenant in your new home? An old newspaper, a forgotten photograph, harmless things. But what if you found a diary? I moved into a new apartment. Everything was perfect until I found an old notebook hidden in the closet. The last entry sent chills down my spine. If you're reading this, it's already too late to run. What happened next? Listen carefully, and don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments, what would you do in my place? Moving to a new place always means change. Sometimes good, sometimes bad. But for me, everything was going perfectly. I had finally left my cramped rental and found a cozy apartment at a surprisingly low price. A quiet neighborhood, friendly neighbors, spacious rooms. It felt like the perfect place for a new chapter in my life. The first few days went by smoothly. I unpacked my things, arranged the furniture, and even started taking morning jogs, something I had never done before. Life seemed to be on the right track. A week passed, and I already felt at home. One evening, I decided to finally go through the old wooden wardrobe in my bedroom. It was massive, dark, and worn, with heavy handles and faded doors. The previous tenant had probably left it behind because moving something that big was far from easy. I wasn't expecting to find anything special, maybe some dust, old receipts, or forgotten junk. But as I rummaged through the shelves, my fingers brushed against something unexpected. A small, tattered notebook. Its cover was worn, the pages yellowed with time. It had clearly been sitting there for years. Curious, I sat on my bed and flipped it open. The first few pages were normal, shopping lists, casual thoughts, notes about daily life. Then, things started getting strange. The entries became unsettling. The previous tenant wrote about hearing noises at night, even though they lived alone. About things moving by themselves. About feeling a presence in the apartment. And then the final entry. A single chilling sentence that made my skin crawl. If you're reading this, it's already too late to run. I closed the notebook and let out a shaky breath. My fingers felt cold. My skin covered in goosebumps. It had to be a joke. Or maybe the previous tenant was just paranoid. Lack of sleep, stress, or an overactive imagination could make anyone start hearing things. But still, I couldn't shake the unease creeping into my mind. I placed the notebook on my nightstand and glanced around the room. The dim glow of the bedside lamp cast long shadows on the walls. Everything was just as it had been before. Silent. Still. Yet, I suddenly felt watched. Shaking my head, I tried to push away the irrational fear. I wasn't going to let some scribbled words from a stranger mess with me. With a sigh, I turned off the light and lay down. But sleep didn't come easily. I kept replaying the words in my mind. If you're reading this, it's already too late to run. What did that even mean? Too late for what? At some point, exhaustion took over, and I finally drifted off. I woke up at exactly 3:14 a.m. No sound, no disturbance, just an abrupt, unexplainable awakening. My eyes snapped open, and my heart was pounding as if I had been running. I lay still, listening, trying to understand what had woken me. That's when I heard it. A soft, almost inaudible creak, like the sound of a footstep. My breath caught in my throat. My first instinct was to brush it off. Maybe the building was just settling, or it was the wind. But then, another creak. And this time, it was closer. I turned my head toward the wardrobe, the very place where I had found the diary. The doors were closed, I was sure of it. I had checked before going to bed. But something felt wrong. I couldn't see anything in the darkness, but the air felt heavier. Like the room was holding its breath, waiting. Then a whisper. So soft, so distant, that I almost thought I imagined it. But I didn't. It came from inside the wardrobe. A single word, barely audible, but it froze me to my core. Run. I didn't move. Every muscle in my body locked in place, my breath caught in my throat. Had I really just heard that? Or was my exhausted brain playing tricks on me? Run. The word echoed in my skull, slow and deliberate. My eyes remained fixed on the wardrobe, my pulse thudding loudly in my ears. The air felt thick, almost suffocating. Then, another creak. A tiny one, barely noticeable, but enough. I wasn't imagining this. Something was in there. My survival instincts finally kicked in. I sat up abruptly, fumbling for my phone. The screen's glow barely pushed back the darkness, but I didn't dare shine it toward the wardrobe. Maybe it's just the wood shifting. Maybe I left the doors slightly open and a draft moved them. Maybe a tap. Soft. Like fingers drumming from the inside of the wardrobe door. I felt ice crawl up my spine. Enough. I wasn't going to sit there like an idiot waiting for some horror movie cliché to unfold. I had to do something. I had to see. With shaky hands, I reached over and grabbed the metal flashlight from my nightstand. The one I kept there just in case of a power outage. My fingers clenched around it like a lifeline. One deep breath. Another. Then, in one swift motion, I turned on the flashlight and aimed it directly at the wardrobe. The doors were still closed. But that didn't reassure me. Slowly, I slid out of bed, my feet making no sound against the floor. The room felt too big, the shadows too deep. Every step forward felt like stepping into something I wasn't supposed to be part of. I hesitated in front of the wardrobe, my fingers hovering over the handle. My breathing was uneven, and for a brief moment I thought about just leaving the apartment altogether. But some horrible, twisted curiosity kept me in place. I gritted my teeth. Enough stalling. With a sudden motion, I yanked the doors open. The wardrobe was empty. No strange figures. No ghostly hands reaching out. Just clothes, hangers, and a faint smell of old wood. I let out a breath, my heartbeat still hammering. Maybe I really was losing it. Then, as I lowered the flashlight, I saw it. A new entry in the diary. It wasn't there before. I was sure of it. Heart pounding, I picked it up, my hands trembling as I flipped to the last page. The ink was fresh. The words, scrawled and hurried, uneven handwriting, sent a shiver down my spine. It knows you heard it. I dropped the diary. It hit the floor with a dull thud, but I barely noticed. My hands were shaking, my skin ice cold. It knows you heard it. Who wrote that? How did it appear? Was someone in my apartment? I spun around, flashing my light toward every dark corner. Nothing. The air was still, the room silent except for my ragged breathing. But the weight of something unseen pressed against my chest. I wasn't alone. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to run out the door and never look back. But my legs wouldn't move. A noise. Scraping. It came from the wardrobe. Inside the wardrobe. A slow, deliberate sound, like something shifting against the wooden back panel. I clenched my flashlight tighter. If I left this unanswered, I'd never sleep again. With trembling hands, I reached into the wardrobe, pushing aside my hanging clothes. My fingers brushed against the wooden back, except it felt wrong. Not solid. Not like wood. Like fabric? I ran my fingers along the surface, and my stomach dropped. There was a gap in the wood. A hidden space. My breath hitched. Slowly, I pushed against the panel. At first, it resisted. But then, with a faint click, the entire back wall of the wardrobe shifted inward. A secret compartment. And inside, something was waiting for me. A single Polaroid photo. I picked it up with unsteady hands, angling my flashlight over it. The photo showed my bedroom. My bedroom. Right now. My bed. My nightstand. The open wardrobe. And me, standing there, holding this exact photo. Except, my reflection in the Polaroid wasn't looking at the picture. It was looking behind me. Cold terror flooded my veins. I turned. Darkness. Nothing there. But I felt it. Something was standing right behind me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to run, but I was paralyzed. Then, a whisper. Not a word. Not a voice. Just the sensation of breath against my ear. The lights flickered. The flashlight in my hand died. The room plunged into total darkness. And in that black void, just before the silence swallowed everything, I heard it. A single distorted, ragged breath. Right next to me. I couldn't move. The air around me felt thick, suffocating, like I was drowning in invisible hands gripping my chest. My flashlight was dead. The apartment was silent. But I wasn't alone. Something was here. I forced myself to breathe. Slow, steady. My fingers clenched around the Polaroid, now damp with sweat. The image still burned in my mind. Me, standing in this room. And something behind me. But the worst part? I could still feel it. The whisper of breath against my neck. A presence pressing against my back. And then, a soft creak. Not behind me. In front. I knew the layout of my room. I knew where my furniture was. That sound? It came from the bed. Something was sitting on my bed. A wave of pure, primal fear surged through me. My instincts screamed to run, but my body refused to obey. My fingers fumbled for my phone. Maybe I could use the screen's light. Buzz. My phone vibrated in my hand. A message. I didn't send one. I hesitated, then looked. One new text. Unknown number, don't turn around. My heart nearly stopped. The walls seemed to close in. I felt like a cornered animal, trapped in the dark with something I couldn't see. I needed to get out. Now, with every ounce of willpower, I forced my legs to move, inching toward the door. Slow, quiet. My fingers brushed the doorknob. Another buzz. Another text. Unknown number, you're too late. The temperature dropped. The air thickened. Behind me, the whispering started. Dozens of voices, overlapping, speaking in hushed, frantic tones. Too many words at once. Too many voices. And they were getting closer. I yanked the door open and sprinted. Out of the bedroom. Through the hallway. The apartment was freezing, the air thick with something wrong. I reached the front door, yanking at the lock. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the knob. Click. It opened. I bolted into the hallway and stopped cold. The hallway was wrong. Dim, stretched. Longer than before. My apartment door slammed shut behind me. The walls pulsed like they were breathing. Then, a noise. Not from my apartment. From the end of a hallway. A figure. Tall. Shadowed. Watching me. It didn't move. But I knew. It was the thing from the Polaroid. And it had followed me. I didn't wait. I ran. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly. No doors. No exits. My breaths came in sharp gasps. My heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then, just as suddenly as it began. Light. I blinked. The hallway was gone. I was standing outside. The sun was rising. I turned, looking back. My apartment building stood there, silent, unchanged. No flickering lights. No shifting walls. Had it been real? Or had I lost my mind? I looked down. In my shaking hand, I was still holding the Polaroid. My breath caught. I slowly turned it over. New writing. You made it out. This time. I dropped the photo. Then my phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. See you soon. If you think this was terrible, then subscribe now and turn on notifications. You don't want to miss new stories. And let me know in the comments. Would you open that closet?